Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you may be watching this live recording. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Starkey Formstead. My name is Samantha, and boy, do we have 1,000 topics to cover. The first real big one, I want you to be aware of the fact that there is a new COVID strain. It is literally sweeping the world again. Now, we all know, good morning, Kelly, what happened with the first one and where it came from. So I want you guys to understand that it is out there. So possibly get you some immune boosters on board, get you some sunlight, get some exercise, make sure that you are hydrated. I just wanted to put that out there. You guys know my oldest son is currently serving in the U.S. military. He is in the Middle East. And for the first time in his entire life, he has caught this strain of COVID. I just got a text. He said they had to give me 2 days off. So I'm in my room being lazy. So, it is going around. I just wanted to warn you guys of that, I also wanted to let you guys know there was another fire. We're coming in on the 2-year anniversary of what happened in Maui. And now there is another stinking fire in Kanapanali, which is right down probably about 15, 20 minutes drive from Lahaina, where the fires were in August 8th of 2023. So here we go again. I've not seen any real updates on whether or not they were able to get that put out, but it's obviously a nice size blaze. So I wanted to tell you guys, keep Maui in your prayers. I reached out to my friends and family that I made on the island from the 3 mission trips that I took. And they're all okay. And they're watching it closely. They understand the implication of another fire. It's just, if you could see the island, it's drying up. It's literally dying because the water is not pouring down the mountain any longer. It's being rerouted to all of the big hotels on the coast. And so what's happening is the grassland areas, those areas are drying up because the water cycle has been interrupted. So if you know anything about natural water cycles, you've got a mountain, it rains, the water goes down, it gets sucked back into the earth, it creates this cycle. Well, the water is being pulled from the cycle. So now you have less rain. And because you have less rain, you have more dry land. And it's just this constant cycle being interrupted. And it's heartbreaking because the indigenous peoples of Maui know how to care for their island. And they have constantly tried to stop these huge, massive corporate hotels being put along the coastline. And the government just keeps allowing it to happen. So I just want you guys to know what's going on in the world, before we get into what I want to talk about, because we honestly don't know what's going on, right? I think we can all agree on that the information we have comes from 2 places: social media and or mainstream media. Very few of us have direct inroads to speak to people personally in a situation. Okay, so we can all agree on that. Like, you don't know what's going on unless somebody tells you what's going on, or you happen to be at that spot in that time. Now, having said that, I want you to keep that thought to the forefront of your mind as I present the evidence I'm fixing to present to you guys. As always, I come with receipts. It'll all be linked in description. You'll have the news articles. You'll have the videos. I highly suggest, if you're going to have an opinion, go look at the evidence I'm giving you, the information I'm providing you free of charge, because I don't get paid by YouTube. Look at it and then make an educated, not an emotional response, but an educated response. We need more of that. A lot of you know that President Trump is he's so sick of the CIA. He calls them the shadow government. And I'm going to agree with him. Will Trump's plan to reform the CIA succeed? Good morning. Among sweeping changes to the federal bureaucracy announced by the Trump administration as part of its ambitious agenda for its second term is the plan to reform the Central Intelligence Agency. I think a lot of us conservatives were like, yay. And I think a lot of Democrats were like, yay, because we understand just looking at what the CIA has been required by law to provide you and I, the things that they've done, Project Mockingbird, where they had all the news agencies repeat stories that were untrue over and over and over until people believed it. We've seen something called the color regimes or the color change, where the CIA would say, okay, we're going to call Vietnam the yellow. And then they would go in there and they would destroy the governing body of Vietnam and then put their people in the position of power. They have done this over and over and over all around the world. And what it has done has created power vacuums. So almost every world war, almost every mini war that America has been involved in for the past 80 years can be directly tied back to the CIA and what they're doing in these foreign countries. Your opium trade, CIA. Human trafficking, CIA. So it's this insane group of men and women that are out there just twisting the truth and working outside of the Constitution. In fact, the CIA never had jurisdiction on American soil. Yet, you go back to MK Ultra, you go back to what the CIA has been doing. The GATE program, the Gifted and Talented Education Program, all of that is tied to the CIA. So when you see President Trump go, we've got a problem with the American federal government. One, it's too large. Two, the CIA is working outside of what it was created to do. It's out of control. There are no checks and balances. Where does the CIA get its money, folks? Think about that. See if you can find it, because it's going to blow your mind how dirty that money is. The reason I'm telling you this is because the CIA is directly responsible for the creation of these anti-American terrorist groups around the world. They funded these groups. They didn't just fund them, they trained them. They trained them. They had a hand in Hamas. They had a hand in ISIS. Or ISIS, however you want to say it. They've had a hand in every major Muslim Islamic terrorist group, every black fundamentalist terrorist group, every white fundamentalist terrorist group. They have pitted cultures, races, and religions against each other for 80 plus years. They have funded all sides. Why, Sam? Because if your goal is destruction, then the best thing that you can do is fund everyone. Fund everyone. Have a control of everything. Kind of like when you see these people that do stocks and bonds on the stock market, they got a little money everywhere. And they may put a big chunk of money in this corporation, and then the corporation that's directly against it, they put a lot of money there because they're not sure which one's going to win, but they want a piece of it, right? Good morning. So I'm seeing some questions. Somebody said, are you talking about the COVID razor throat? Honestly, I don't know. I have to talk to my son when I get off live to see exactly what version of COVID is going around. And as for Hammer, he is literally laying on the floor beside me right here. He is having a very rough time. Today seems to be a little better, but we are still trying to raise enough money to get his MRI, which will be several $1,000s, to see if we can actually fix what is wrong with him. So let me just keep going. Trump's America First agenda basically requires the destruction, or at least the dismantling of the CIA, right? And there are several key reasons Trump focused on changing the mechanisms entrenched at the heart of US security, right? So Trump repeatedly argued that the CIA and the broader intelligence community was biased and unaccountable. There is nobody that they have to talk to. In other words, there is nobody above the CIA going, look, that's not even humane. That's not even moral. Like legally, you cannot do what you're doing. There's nobody above them. There are no watchdogs for the CIA. Why am I trying to get you guys to understand this? Because the propaganda that we are being fed, not just from mainstream media, but through, people's personal platforms, is so biased that it's mind-blowing to me. And I want to free you of that. That's what I want you to understand why things are being said the way they're being said. I want you to understand who they are. They is not Israel. They is the CIA. No doubt, Netanyahu was put in place as president of Israel through the CIA. I don't like Netanyahu. I do not like him. But I didn't like Joe Biden either, but I still loved America. So I don't like Netanyahu, but I understand that Israel is not just a physical place. It's a group of people, and I love them, just like I love the people in the Middle East. Like I want what's best for them and their children, and I understand that the CIA is what is best for the world. And our current president, also understands that. He deeply knows personally what has happened to him because of the CIA's dishonesty and the covering up. Sometimes it's not that they're telling lies, they just don't tell the truth. They know what's going on, but they won't present the information because they sit back and they hold it. Because again, there's nobody to check them, nobody to watch them. There's no watchdog for the CIA. It goes on to say that Trump criticized what he saw as a misplaced focus within the intelligence community. There was a call to shift attention toward what he considered more pressing threats, such as challenges from nations like China or emerging national security threats, like the fact that Philadelphia, thank you whoever sent me that information, Philadelphia is giving out potassium iodide pills to anyone that lives near the nuclear power plants. Now, they did that in 2024, but they're doing it again in 2025. And it begs you have to ask the question, why? Why are you passing out potassium iodide pills by a nuclear plant? Are you expecting something to pop off? Well, the obvious answer is they most certainly are. They either know something is coming or they understand that the threat is viable. Therefore, they're taking a step ahead of the trauma and the explosion, and they're providing the people that live within a 10-mile radius of these facilities, and there are multiple ones listed. If you are from that area, please check your local news. It is there. It's easy to find. And you can get your potassium iodide pills for you and everyone in your family. Now, Trump understands that the CIA is not coming forth truthfully with information on emerging national security threats, okay? He says rather than lingering on issues that he claimed were overemphasized, like the role of Russia, the fixation on a climate change, the excessive focus on right extremism, because remember that under Joe Biden, white Christians who were Republicans were put on watch list, and we were considered extremist. Like they watched you, whether you know it or not. You want to know how I know that my husband and I were on a watch list? My husband applied for a firearm. My husband has no criminal history. The sheriff double checked for us. Our local parish sheriff double checked. There's nothing that should have stopped my husband from purchasing a gun. He has also He has also purchased weapons prior. He went to get it, and we were given an ATF like door hanger that said, reach out to this email, no phone number, like it's either an email or a website, and do a deep dive as to why you can't purchase this weapon. Because you put us on a watch list. That's why. Because we love our country and we're Christians. So that is what the CIA and the FBI have been putting their energy to since the Biden regime was in office. Basically, hound dogging, tax-paying, Jesus-loving Christians. Like, are you kidding me? I'm a threat? I mean, that's basically what YouTube said, right? We're not going to pay you, Samantha, because your content is harmful. Say what? Has anybody ever heard me curse? Anybody ever seen me put up any kind of sexually explicit material? Anybody ever heard me condemn and call to hurt anyone ever? No. So what you have heard me say is that Jesus loves you and that your own government is the worst thing in the entirety of the world. But having said that, friends and family of the internet, understand me now. There are people in this world that chant death to America. Why? Because that's what they've been taught. That's what our government has done to them and their home countries. But does that give these people the right to chant death to America and try to harm you and I and our children? No, they don't have a right. Listen to this. This was on a plane. I think it was in Australia. I think it says, what would you do if a guy on your plane was shouting death to America? It's going to start over. Give it a second. So, death to America, la, la, la. He feels that way because the CIA funded a hate campaign against its own country, the people that they're supposed to be protecting in his country, because they brought false information to our military and sparked off huge wars around the world. Willow Fairy said that's the one, Luton to Glasgow, a very short flight. Thank you. So you're seeing this hate for America spreading. You're seeing Christians being persecuted in the entirety of the Middle East and South Africa, not just persecuted, horrifically murdered by the hundreds of thousands. And it's not just, it's everywhere. But you will not see it on mainstream media. You're going to actually have to be responsible for the information that you intend to receive and go look for it. Now, having said all of that, you and I, most of us are Americans. A few of you are from Europe or Canada or Australia, New Zealand, where my daughter got married. So I feel like I got a little New Zealand in me now. You guys are all sitting there thinking like, wow, our countries, our Western civilizations are amazing places to live. Like we're relatively safe, right? We have pretty good, stable economies. We love our countries. We have great constitutions. We have freedoms. Women are not forced to wear burqas and all this craziness. Like, no honor killings here, right? Except for when you bring illegal aliens into the country and he tries to kill his daughter on the high school property. Other than that, honor killings don't really happen here. Like, it's a great place to live. Most Americans are good-hearted, God-fearing people. Like, we're just, even if you're Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. I'm talking Americans in general. We're good, kind-hearted people. We have literally supported the entirety of the world with our tax dollars for 80 plus years while siphoning off all of America's wealth into the hands of the rich through nonprofits and NGOs. We let that happen because we truly believed people were being helped. Now we know different. Having said that, it does not make every American a bad person because what our federal government has done to the world. What the CIA has done, that the millions of people's deaths in the hands of the CIA should not be laid at your feet or mine, because we would never do that, right? None of us would ever be okay with forcing children to work in poppy fields. Like, we are not okay with that. But that's what our government, our shadow government, has done. We know that. We know that Venezuela, once a beautiful, prospering, upper middle class country, was destroyed because of CIA. We know that Cuba became Cuba in the sense of the way it is now because of the messing around of the CIA. We can prove it. It's not opinion. It is public fact. It is historical fact that the CIA has repeatedly destroyed other countries in the name of American freedom. But that does not make you or me bad people. And we can all agree on that. Now, having said that, what is going on in the world right now, you and I really don't know. We can't know because it is all propaganda. And unless you are there, boots on the ground, like I was in Maui. So when I tell you something happened in Maui, it's because I was there talking to the people that lived there. Unless you are there or you are talking to somebody that is there, you really don't know if what is coming out of there is truth in any situation. I'm telling you this because I believe most of you are God-fearing, good people. And I think the propaganda has gotten to such an extent that a lot of people are dangerously close to removing the blessings from your own life that God has for you. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I really pray that you have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, and that you give me just a few more minutes to show you the evidence I'm talking about. If you would like to receive our newsletter and come on Zooms with me and everybody, get put in the state groups and start, doing the hard work to take our country back, look in the top of comments at the end of this live. And whatever you send, whether it's $1, $10, or $100, put your email in it in the memo and you'll get all those things. Because I am trying to raise money for Hammer's MRI.
254 people hostage that day, including 12 Americans. The situation remains horrific. Hamas still has 49 hostages, 45 Israeli citizens, 4 foreign nationals. Hamas refuses to return the bodies of 28 dead hostages. Hamas refuses to relinquish power and accept Israel's right to exist. Caught in the middle are the people in Gaza. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says more than 58,000 have been killed in the fighting and that thousands are starving. The real story? There is no question. Innocent people, including children, are dying in Gaza. People are hungry. It's at the point that some people are probably starving to death. The Gaza Strip is an absolute disaster area. We have no way to verify the death toll. Hamas does not differentiate between civilians and militants. We can't believe anything Hamas says about the number of people killed or the risk of starvation. Why? Local Gazan reporters are being threatened, assaulted, and intimidated by Hamas. The head of the Palestinian journalist syndicate, Nasser Abu Bakr, says Hamas targets journalists with summonses, interrogations, phone calls, threats, beatings, and arrest, publication bans, interference with content, and surveillance. Reporter Mohammed Abu Akwan says he was beaten by Hamas internal security forces in 2024 while interviewing a woman in central Gaza. Why? Because the woman insulted Hamas and some of its leaders. Another journalist told the Washington Post they feared that covering demonstrations would lead Hamas to accuse them of spying for Israel. And those not reporting with a gun to their head are actual members of Hamas. April 2025, Israel said.
So he's saying, and I will link all of these videos and articles, that the journalists in Hamas, in Gaza, are part of Hamas. They're actually militants, or they're forced to say what they're saying. So how can we believe anything that's coming out of Gaza when it's Hamas, the CIA's brainchild? Because I know a lot of people believe that Israel helped to create Hamas. And maybe Netanyahu had a little bit to do with that. Let's be honest. Let's talk about it. What politician doesn't got his hands a little dirty? Can I get an amen? Come on, folks. We're not children here, are we? We all know that they're dirty to some extent. If they're lifelong politicians, there's some skeletons in their closets. And they all do things to benefit themselves in some weird way, is all I'm saying. I'm not accusing Netanyahu for sure, because I don't have any evidence. And that would be a froward mouth. That would be hearsay, be bearing false witness. I'm simply saying that there has been insinuations, I've seen them, I've heard them, that there was possibility that Netanyahu funded Hamas at some point. I'm going to go a little further. Israel stands because America pumps so much money into it. But before you all go, oh, she finally said it. So does the entirety of the world. Canada's military is funded by the United States. Mexico has water because the United States takes water from Texas farmers and ships it into Mexico for them. A lot of American farms grow food. I'm talking these, family farms of several hundred acres. They grow food that's then shipped overseas. You and I don't even benefit from it. America has basically funded the Ukrainian war. We fund the entirety of the world is funded by you and I. So you can't just say it's okay to give money, food, and medicine to the entirety of the world, but not Israel, because that really does make you anti-Semitic. But if you're like me, you have a problem with all of it. I'm like, whoa, hey. Things are getting too expensive for American citizens. This is our country. It is our forefathers that created this country. For a while, at least, the money needs to stay here with us, for us and our children. I don't mind aid. I don't mind helping those in need by any means. I do mind funding the entirety of the world while cutting our nose to spite our face. Having said that, there have been rumors that Netanyahu possibly created Hamas. I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to lay it at the feet of the CIA. The CIA of the America's government created and funded Hamas like they did every other Islamic terrorist group. And yet when you see podcasters or content creators just wanting to hate Israel, that's a heart problem. Why would you just blame it on Israel and the people there? They're just trying to survive. Why don't you go one step further and be honest that it is literally the American government using American tax dollars and human trafficking money that is creating these little groups of Islamic terrorists all over the world because they need that. Through chaos, they get what they're looking for, which is control. Oh, you got this, Becky. Becky says she has to leave. She's got a dental appointment. Oh, I know how you feel, guys. When I had all my teeth removed, it took so long for me to get back on my feet. But oh, I'm so thankful. I listened to my parents and my podiatrist and my husband, and I had them remove my teeth because literally they were killing me. That's a whole nother topic. Okay, let's keep going.
Them to die. So news organizations have been relying on local journalists in Gaza, the same journalists who are threatened by Hamas and who are part of Hamas. Of course, that's not how the statement reads. Here's the entire statement. Quote, "We are desperately concerned for our journalists in Gaza, who are increasingly unable to feed themselves and their families. For many months, these independent journalists have been the world's eyes and ears on the ground in Gaza. They are now facing the same dire circumstances as those they are covering. Journalists endure many deprivations and hardships in war zones. We are deeply alarmed that the threat of starvation is now one of them." That's a second quote. "We once again urge the Israeli authorities to allow journalists in and out of Gaza. It is essential that adequate food supplies reach the people there." Now, look, I'm a staunch supporter of Israel and fair, fact-based journalism. The two are not mutually independent. Let's look at this with common sense. For the most part, foreign press has not been allowed in Gaza. When they are, it's with the IDF, which decides what they see and what they don't see. In fact, just last week, the IDF took the Wall Street Journal to a food distribution site in Gaza. There was clearly no censorship. And here are the Wall Street Journal headlines. "Children starve in Gaza as hunger crisis deepens." Why Israel's chaotic new food program in Gaza has turned so deadly. Do you think Hamas would ever allow such unbiased reporting? Israeli media also would like more access to Gaza. The Times of Israel editor David Horowitz made the case for independent journalism inside the Gaza Strip.
I understand why the IDF does what it does and why the government is not pressing for a change in that. I think there's a concern that if you let reporters semi-freely even operate in Gaza, you risk their lives. They may be prepared to take that risk, but Israel does not want to be held responsible. But I have to say, as a journalist, it is our obligation.
And I agree. I understand why these journalists want to get in there, but it is a war. It is a war. Folks, I have said this before, and I don't know why it offends people, but I'm going to say it again. I have 4 beautiful young adult children, 2 of which serve in the U.S. military. If, just say Canada for easy speaking, don't get offended, Canada. Canada came across the border and killed thousands of Americans and took hundreds hostage. And 2 years later, my children were still in Canada being starved. I would be for totally destroying Canada. If you really would put yourself in that position and think if that was my son or daughter being slowly starved to death in Gaza, what would I do? What would I be okay for them to do to get my kids back? It's war. I'm not siding with either of them. We don't and we'll never know what is exactly happening. However, I do trust that when President Trump said, okay, the United Nations is failing, the Red Cross is failing, and Hamas is stealing the food. I trust him when he says that. I trust that when he took $30 million, American dollars, and hired private contract military protection for the food, and then sided up with Israel and said, we're coming through your country and we're going to deliver. That was when they say he's working with Israel. That's what they mean. The food is brought into Israel. The armed guards come into Israel. They line the food up and then they drive it into Gaza. Do you know why they're telling you that? It's only been going on for like 6 weeks. So I'm not sure how people can't see the deception there. So people have only been starving for 6 weeks. Is that what you're trying to tell me? What has happened to all the food that has been brought into Gaza? Why are people starving if millions and millions of pounds of food has already been delivered into Gaza? All the way up until 6 weeks ago when Trump said, enough, y'all are failing, we're doing it. What's the difference, folks? You're ignoring that 2 years food was brought in, but people were starving. You didn't say a word then. Now you're saying something because somebody told you that Trump's food trucks are failing, and you're believing it. I find it shocking that people can't see. You won't see. It's not that you can't. It's that you won't. You've been told to feel a certain way. And because for so much of your life, you have been told what to think, when to think it, and how to think it, that you fell in line. They knew you would. They banked on you doing it. Today, more than everything in my entire heart, I hope that this video breaks that for some of you. I hope some of you sit down and go, I don't always agree with her. In fact, I'm not even really comfortable with what she was talking about today. But she had a really good point when she said this. Because I'm going to show you what's really going on.
Yesterday, thousands of Jews ascended the Temple Mount, showing their longing for God's presence to return to Jerusalem and the house of prayer for all nations. But the most incredible thing was that these Jews were allowed to pray openly. They were allowed to sing openly, and they were allowed to openly dance on the Temple Mount. Now, if you're not familiar with what happens in Jerusalem, that might not sound like a big deal. And frankly, it shouldn't be treated like a big deal because the Temple Mount is the site of both the first and second temples. Why should it be such a big deal for Jews to pray and sing on the Temple Mount? Well, for the last 2,000 years, Jews have been discriminated against and have been prohibited from so much as moving their lips in silent prayer on the Temple Mount. Even though the Temple Mount is under Israeli control, the world has dictated to Israel that only Muslims are allowed to pray and have free access to the site. Thankfully, Israel is starting to take ownership of Jewish rights on the Temple Mount, and throughout this last year, Jews have been allowed to openly pray and sing in parts of the Temple Mount complex. Watch this clip. And something else big that happened yesterday. For the first time in 2,000 years, a leader of the nation of Israel, someone from Israel's government, led prayers on the Temple Mount. Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir led prayers in the place where God's physical presence actually rested. Guys, redemption is happening in Israel. Prophecy is taking place right before our eyes. Unfortunately, Israel is still experiencing a lot of pain. We're going to get into a very dark video that Hamas just released to the world in just a second. But first, in the 12-day war that Israel just faced with Iran, over 500 ballistic missiles were fired into Israel, and there were 31 impacts in civilian areas, with 28 people killed and 3,000 people injured. Israel just faced one of the most intense threats since its establishment. But through it all, Magen David Adom, which is Israel's emergency services system, was on the front lines, risking everything. Yesterday, thousands of Jews ascended the Temple Mount.
If you guys don't understand what's happening, you should have chill bumps. The veil that Jesus tore apart when he died on that cross. Come on, Jesus. You guys don't even understand what's actually happening. This is it. They're fixing Israel. The Jewish people are taking back their holiest of holy sites. to build the third temple. Jesus is going to return very soon. And in case you don't understand this, Jesus Christ is King. And Christ was Jewish.
Being starved to death. Unlike the claim that Israel is starving Palestinians in Gaza, where no one can actually produce evidence to back it up, Hamas just blatantly admitted to starving Israeli hostages. They gave a video to the world. The video was released just before the weekend, and in the video you can see Eviatar David, who looks like someone straight out of the death camps in Nazi Germany. He is emaciated, his bones are sticking out everywhere. He is seen digging inside a tunnel, and he says that he is digging his own grave. And in this propaganda video, he talks about how little food there is, and obviously Hamas tells him to say that they can't find any food, and that is why he is starving. At one point in the video, though, one of his captors hands him a can of food to eat on camera. And you can see right here the lie right before your eyes. The hand that gives him the can of food is fat and healthy, clearly proving that Hamas is deliberately starving the hostages. I want you to look at this picture of him before he was kidnapped by Hamas and what he looks like now after being held by Hamas for over 600 days. This image is horrific. There are reports that President Trump was moved to tears upon seeing the video of Eviatar David. Testimony from the former hostages who were also being held with Eviatar also confirmed this disgusting act by Hamas. The crazy part about this whole video...
So, it's called gaslighting. It's called gaslighting. Hamas is starving the people in Gaza that won't get underneath their control. The people in Gaza that won't support Hamas, because there are Gazans who hate Hamas. There are Palestinians who want Hamas gone. They know what these people are doing and they're disgusted by it. Do you know what they do to those people? They starve them. They kill them. They beat them. So it's not just Jews they're doing it to. They're doing it to their own people. So Hamas tells the world that everybody in Gaza is starving, even though enough food has been delivered to the Gazan Strip to feed everybody in that entire area in one load for 1 year. And there's been hundreds and hundreds of loads. So there's enough food in Gaza to keep the entirety of Gaza from starving for about 5 years. But the question is, who has the food? Where is it? It's been delivered. There's videos. Who has the food? Who has control of the food in Gaza? Hamas. And they're intentionally starving the people they kidnapped. That young man looks like a Holocaust survivor. This is in 2025. And I want you to hear this young Jewish woman.
Controversial and being somebody tremendous that people listen to, you have lost your way. And I don't know if it's anything to do with your Christian cult, potentially it is, but the reality is as such that if you don't choose to be on the side of the Jewish people, if you don't choose to connect to the miracle that is the Jewish people, to see Israel as a state that is fighting terror, we are on the forefront of fighting against something evil, something that you claim to be fighting. If you don't understand that that's the Jewish people's mission, and if you don't get on our side and help us, then your downfall is coming too. This is not a threat. It is not something that I am capable of doing. It is something that the God of Israel, the God of the Jewish people, has promised in his eternal book, the Bible. That is the reality of whoever tries to come after us. And we will continue, despite your hatred of us, despite the fact that you come up with every anti-Semitic trope under the book, despite the fact that you are a stereotype. We will prosper and we will survive and we will continue to do our thing and continue to have massive positive impact. Yes, when it's misdirected, the Jewish impact can be highly negative, and that is a responsibility on us. And you're calling us out on that, and it is important that we remember that when we do badly with this massive responsibility that God has given us, the negative things happen. But you, Candace, are on the wrong side of history, and I'm sorry to tell that to you. Even if you're sitting in an interview with Tucker and you're talking about how much of a nice mom you are, at the end of the day, you are somebody out there who is growing a narrative against the Jewish people, not just against the state of Israel, even if you try and separate it. And that is just bad news for you. And with that, I will wish you adieu from Israel, the eternal land, the land that does not hate children, but rather prospers and tries to create families and create love, a land that is not a terrorist, but rather fighting terrorist entity, and the land which will last forever, whilst you, Candace, will not. Controversial and being somebody.
She is right. Israel will last forever, folks. Because when Jesus comes back, it's going to be as it was meant to be. Somebody said the reason why people are starving in Gaza is there's no fuel to cook food. I know. I'm trying. God bless you. God bless your heart.
Massive.
Wow.
And since they shot JFK, and when I say they, it's like people online say, "What do you mean by they?" I'm talking about Israel. I don't want you guys to read it between. I'm talking about Israel. So let's stop making that a taboo subject because they've gone mask down. Everything they're doing is demonic. I want nothing to do with it. I will never support Israel into the future after what they've done to these children. The starvation campaign. I don't care. Please write your article. You've already written them all. I don't know what you could add about me, but I do not support Israel, and I don't think that Jewish Americans should support Israel, and I hope that they're now having those conversations. I see many of them recognizing that they have been propagandized into believing they have to support this demonic state.
I'm joined now by my friend Dumasani Washington, CEO of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. Dumasani, what did you think of this podcast?
This is beyond Raj. So Candace has been kind of on this anti-Israel, even anti-Semitic journey, if you will, publicly since around the fall of 2022. And so it has just escalated seemingly year after year. Virtually everything that she said in there is either a lie or a distortion, but she doesn't mind doing it, Raj, at all. I mean, the whole Israel killed John F. Kennedy, there's no evidence of that. There are files that were released. There's different information that's in there. People are still sorting it through, but there's no reason. And there's a lot of those conspiracy theories going around, right? Israel did it. It's amazing. I'll just interject this one thing. With the one person who's talked about the killing of JFK the most has been his nephew, Robert Kennedy Jr., for decades. And he has posited that it is the CIA. Now, I'm not here to say whether that's true or not, but he's talked about it, given all those receipts.
Who killed him? The CIA. I'm going to tell you what's going on, because a lot of people just, they cannot understand why is there so much hatred for just the Jewish people. Never in history would you see people finding a reason to okay mass extinction events against one type of people. Recently, I've heard Black people, well, Hitler had a reason for killing the Jews. They must have done something. That is as ignorant as when you see a white person say, well, Blacks must have done something. That's why they were enslaved. The lack of accountability for your words are astonishing to me. There's a war going on in the Middle East. There has always been a war going on in the Middle East. But it is not Israel starving children. It is Hamas, who is funded by the CIA. The same organization that has repeatedly, and I can prove it through factual data, attempted to destroy America and America's allies. It's shocking to me in 2025 that anybody's starving. We have plenty of food on this planet. We have plenty of water on this planet. We have plenty of oil on this planet. We're not lacking anything. God created the earth to be able to support so many more people than are actually here. They tell you that we're overpopulated. Oh my gosh, we're almost 9 billion people. Have y'all ever really looked at how much land nobody uses or lives on? Just look at the national and state forest and parks in America. That is 1/3 of the total land mass of our continental U.S. is totally not used for anything. No food, no water, no oil, no minerals, no wood, no nothing. It's 1/3 of our entire country. Now go look at Canada. How much of your country is completely and totally unused? Go look at Europe. You guys, y'all's royalty took hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of acres and created parks for the elites that are still there and unused. Yet what do? They squish us all up into these little cities, 15-minute city precursors, and force all of us to sit on top of each other and fight over the available resources. It is a sin. It is demonic. It is the Antichrist system. This earth has plenty of food for all of us. There's plenty of everything for all of us. This is ridiculous. There should not be children starving anywhere. Not Africa, not Gaza, not America, nowhere. But they are. And it's not because we haven't sent enough food. Again, there's enough food already sent into Gaza to support every person there for the next 5 years. So where is the food? Why are people starving? Candace and all of you others, where's the food that's already gone into Gaza? Where is it? Look it up. Why isn't the Red Cross going in to these people that are starving, that can't leave? Not just the people of Gaza, but the people that were kidnapped, the hostages, and making sure they have food. Where's the Red Cross? Do y'all know how many millions of dollars America pumps into the Red Cross every year? And those people don't help anybody. It's all smoke and mirrors. It is all smoke and mirrors. If you're starving and somebody gives you a can, you're not going to turn around and look for a place to heat it up. You're going to open the can and you're going to eat it cold. See, I've lived through horrific hurricanes in South Louisiana where there was no power and no running water for 2 weeks, it was 15 days. We bathed in rivers and we ate food either cold or on a campfire because there was no power. So I don't want to hear there's no way to cook the food. No, you're smarter than that. I expect more of you. And maybe y'all aren't used to that. Maybe you're used to content creators going, believe me, believe me, believe me, believe me. I'm telling you, stop. I'm telling you, go research how much food has been brought into the Gaza Strip in the past 2 years. And I want to know, where the hell's the food? Telling me that people are starving. There's so much friggin' food there. It's probably rotting. Some nasty, smelly man sitting on top of it with a machine gun. Zechariah 12:9. And on that day, I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. Genesis 28:13-15. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised. Christians, you serve the God of Abraham and Isaac. He is Jewish. Romans 11, 1 through 36. I ask then, has God rejected his people? But by no means. For I myself am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, a member of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people who he foreknew. Do you not know what the scripture says of Elijah, how he appeals to God against Israel? Lord, they have killed your prophets. They have demolished your altars, and I alone am left, and they seek my life. But what is God's reply to him? I have kept for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. So too, at the present time, there is a remnant chosen by grace. Numbers 24:9. He lay down like a lion and like a lioness. Who will rouse him up? Blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you. Friends and family of the internet. Nope, Israel doesn't pay me. YouTube doesn't pay me either. And Candace Owens and anybody that hates her sure the heck hasn't sent me my money. But if you'd like to support what we do here, which is truth for the end times, you can look in the top of comments when this live ends. Please feel free to donate. My husband's going to be checked for a brain aneurysm tomorrow, and my dog is fighting for his life. But I will not get on this bandwagon. I have learned in the 50, almost 1 years of my life, that the more people tell me what I should believe, the more I realize that they are wrong. There is something you guys have to understand. There's something called a froward mouth. Froward. In the Hebrew, it's tepuka. I'm trying to say that right. I probably said it wrong. It means a perverse thing. It means perversity or fraud, a froward, a perverse thing. It conveys the twisting or overturning of what is straight. Scripture places the term in the realm of moral distortion, behavior, speech, attitudes that invert God's order and therefore court his judgment. There are 10 occurrences in the Old Testament, starting in Deuteronomy 32:20 and 9 passages in Proverbs, where God says he's talking about froward, F-R-O-W-A-R-D, froward. Proverbs 2:12-15 links perversity to men of perverse speech, because their paths are dark and twisted. Proverbs 6 portrays the schemer who will continually sow discord, the person who is dropping the hints to hate, distrust. Their downfall will be sudden. Proverbs 8 frames perversity as something the Lord hates. True fear of God rejects a froward mouth. Proverbs 10 says a stark contrast. Righteous lips edify, but the perverse tongue is excised, elimination language echoing covenant curses. In other words, instead of telling you the blessings that God has for you, what they are speaking to you will bring curses on to your life and to your seed. Be careful who you listen to, because when they begin to curse God's creation, any people, not just Israel, anybody, when someone begins to curse and okay the destruction of something God in heaven created, which is every man, woman, and child, they have a perverse mouth. In Proverbs 23, it warns that intoxication unshackles the imagination to confusing things or perversions of perception. Most occurrences appear in verbal context, the mouth, the lips, the tongue. God's wisdom equates perverse words with moral disorder, revealing that speech is both a generator of your character and the true indication of yourself. So if somebody says it, it is because they have thought it. And if they have thought it, it has come out of their heart, because that is what the Bible has taught us. And when someone has a froward mouth, they undermine trust. It will manufacture discord, and it will destabilize friendships. The Lord hates perversity and eventually will cut it out. The judgment is portrayed by removal, silence, or exposure. When you look at our social collapse in America, the entirety of our country is socially, morally collapsing in front of us. It is because of covenant rebellion. It is because of froward speech from our elected officials, from those who are content creators, from those who control the media. There are promises in the Bible, but what they must get you to do is to believe that God's word is not holy. They have to make you believe that first. They have to put doubt. They have to speak with a froward mouth and to convince you. But the worst thing is that you have to allow yourself to listen. You have to allow yourself to be convinced. So in the end, God is going to hold you responsible. Just like he will hold me responsible for every word out of my mouth. So please, again, let me respond to this. God bless America and God bless Israel. Now, I have to go pack. My husband has an appointment tomorrow for neurosurgery, and I'm fighting to save my dog. There's a lot on my plate, but your eternal soul does actually matter to me. Love you guys. Be blessed out there.